Hello and welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week's edition of the program, we're focusing on the maiden edition of the Labour Energy Summit in Abuja, Nigeria, where workers gathered in their numbers to discuss with industry players on the several challenges they are faced with, especially with that of energy transition and how it affects the Nigerian workforce. We will be right back.
Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has alerted the nation of looming strikes in the health and judiciary sectors, as well as core service over unreviewed wages. This is as NLC called on all tiers of government and other employers of labor to immediately pay the cost of living allowances to all workers, in line with the global trends to address the global economic challenges. President of NLC, Ayuba Waba, who spoke against the backdrop of the recently suspended 8-month strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, lamented that the judiciary, medical and health sectors' salary structures, including the core civil service, have not been reviewed since 2013, contrary to the provisions of the agreements that provided for a review in 3 years.
It has been very, very difficult for them to discharge their responsibilities without fear or favor and with satisfaction, with job satisfaction. Imagine the challenges that have actually affected the economy from 2009 to date. Spiral inflation. If you are earning X amount as of 2009, how do you survive in this current situation? So it's only ASU that have stepped up, but many of the other institutions, I know as a matter of fact, the medical health salary structure also have been reviewed last in 2009. It's also 13 years now, is due for review, the health salary structure, and all those salary structure, and even the core civil service.
Immediate engagement, but before they go,
This is the maiden edition of the Energy and Labour Summit organized by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN. At the summit, workers in the oil and gas sector spoke about various challenges facing the industry. President of PENGASSAN, Festus Osifo, stressed the need for energy transition and its effect on the workforce in the oil and gas sector in the country. During various presentations at the conference, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company (NNPC), Mele Kyari, says anyone caught in the act of oil theft will not be spared.
It's our duty to do this. Many of the things that you have seen could not have been delivered. Some of the connections that you have seen could not be done except with the involvement of professionals. And they are in our midst. Some we know, some we do not. The ones we know, we must put them on the table. And that's what we are doing. We will spare no one. We will spare nobody in this action, so that ultimately we can get back our assets, so that we can also step forward and say, look, we are doing well, let's have a different chart.
Ultimately, as the energy transition draws closer, the government will develop robust just transition policies that will provide guidelines on how oil and gas professionals can leverage on their core technical expertise to pivot to other clean energy sources.
thank you very much.
Workers in the oil and gas sector have been encouraged to embrace technology and innovation as the world continues to move towards cleaner energy.
Basically about the pipeline integrity.
At the Labour and Energy Summit, panelists spoke about how their various establishments are fighting against oil theft, among other issues that affects the oil and gas sector.
You have stage 1, the static mesh method, stage 2, the metering system, stage 3, the volume received in the receipt tanks of the export tanker. When these things are done, you have these 3 stages. Then the next thing is, you compare what you have established in your first fiscalization, which I refer to as the static mesh method, against what the vessel has also confirmed as what it has received. Then our own procedure says there is a tolerance, which we call ship-shore difference. If it is outside that tolerance, then we now say you must go to the port of discharge, where the final product is going. When it gets there, you establish what volume that vessel has arrived with and what it has finally discharged at the final destination. Now, these are some of the things we do.
3 days of interaction at the Energy and Labour Summit of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN. The summit featured various discussions on issues that affect the world of work and the oil and gas sector. At this session, the keynote speaker Lami Ahmed spoke about women's involvement in the oil and gas industry, evolving challenges and benefits.
The theme, which says energy transition and its effect on the workforce in the Nigerian oil and gas, is further to expose us to what is happening in industry and how we can take the best advantage of the opportunities that there are. And therefore, can these opportunities go without the women? No.
While ensuring that there is gender equality on the journey to attaining greener energy, the Director of Employees and Industrial Relations at the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation stressed the need for labor unions to engage more towards ensuring that contract staffing is reduced.
Recent developments in the world of work shows that skilled workers are now engaged as casuals, and in some cases have become an integral permanent workforce and are referred to in some workplaces as permanent casuals. So this development is what has made casualization synonymous with contract staffing or outsourcing.
Experts believe that the exploits of women in the oil and gas sector hold brighter prospects for the industry and the economy. According to a recent study by the Global Energy Talent Index, while women make up 48% of the global labor force, they only account for 22% in the oil and gas sector. The percentage of women in the industry drops from 36% to 24% between the middle and executive levels.
The plan is to end energy poverty in the country. 2060, the plan is to have zero emission. Then among that, the third is that which concerns me mostly. When I mean me, I mean the worker, which has to be providing increased workforce. How does that affect us? Now we have the plan, and in Nigeria we know most of the things that happen around us, there are plans and policies. Our biggest problem has always been implementation. Now, what is the implementation forecast plan for this? If you ask me as of today, looking at what we have on ground and what we are putting on ground, I fear for these dates because I don't see this happening. Now, for that transition to be effective, there are some infrastructures we need to put on ground. There are some policy changes that has to bring about an enabling environment. There are some technological moves we need to make. Acquire technology, develop technology. There's some technological advancement we need to have from where we are today. And most importantly, we need to develop the manpower to do this.
Workers should always do their own, do their best. That's the first thing. We are professionals, do your own. And that's why we're also agitating against this oil theft. And of course, apart from the theft, it's degrading our environment. You know, if you look at the black soot, for example, in some parts of the Niger Delta, we don't know the impact that it will be in the next 5 or 10 years to our health. And so when you burn crude and everything that it's your right and everything, you are also endangering the lives of your generation, the next generation and everything. So it's just to enlightenment that these things are not okay. And apart from the vast resources being wasted or that the nation will not get as a result of this step, trying to get people to align and then prepare themselves for a better future, better Nigeria.
We believe that the energy transition today is not inimical to the present workforce in Nigeria. We believe very strongly that if we are able to harness the potentials inherent in the PIA as passed into law, and we're able to implement it to the letter, then we would have new areas where more jobs will be created in the industry. And we also take home the advice that most of the panelists, most of the contributors gave as to challenging the present workforce to also reskill.
While we galvanize for us to match up with international best practice of cleaner energy, we must not be unmindful with our resources. Nigeria is more of a gas nation than an oil nation. Therefore, we are pulling industry stakeholders for us to optimize our capacity and potentials into developing our gas infrastructure. One of the challenges with the gas infrastructure is that you need to capture the market first before signing your SLA and commencing your development. However, we have a double blessing in oil. So we will now use the oil to develop our gas infrastructure, just that we are highly distracted by oil theft and pipeline vandalization. So in general, we are prepared, we are ready, but we will develop at our pace, not being unmindful with what the world expects of us, but we will develop our frequency. We are not perturbed by what is happening in the West, but we are focused in what will add value to Nigeria and to Nigeria.
The good news, though, is that right now where we are, fossil fuel is still very much important because the bulk of what you need to do now still depends on the diesel, the gas and all that. And we just need to make the most of what we have now to prepare for that future that is imminent. It will come. It's a matter of when, not whether it will. It will come. The world will diversify from what we have now into greener energy. So we need to channel what we have now and stop being wasteful and make the most of it.
On the Profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the National President of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Festus Osifo. He brings us up to speed on the several challenges workers are faced with in the sector, the need to hold a national summit for workers in the oil and gas sector, and also the homegrown solution the union developed to put a stop to oil theft in the country. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
We've been engaging a lot lately, and PENGASSAN has been at the forefront of so many struggles lately. Congratulations on a successful summit held recently in Abuja.
Thank you so much.
Can you tell us why the union deemed it fit for workers to gather together to have a national summit as regards how it affects the oil and gas industry and labor in general?
Yes. About 3 months ago, so at the CWC meeting, the Central Working Committee meeting of PENGASSAN, we resolved that it would be good for us to bring all our members together, the executives across the various branches. In PENGASSAN, we have about 120 branches. That means that we are operating in about 120 companies, still counting. So the plan was to bring them together in a summit. And the plan for the summit as well was to be held for 3 days, where we will explore topical issues that are affecting the oil and gas industry. So this is actually the maiden edition of a summit. It's tagged Energy and Labor Summit. So the plan is that we're going to be having such summit every year where we'll be doing such brainstorming. We brought people together to talk about topics that are affecting the industry today. For example, issues bordering on renewable energy transition. How will these affect our members going forward? Issues that are bordering on crude oil theft. Government and all stakeholders, they are all running helter-skelter to resolve the issues. Then again as well, we also discussed issues that are bordering on contract staffing, because that is also one of the menaces that is plaguing the oil and gas industry. Then also the role of women in the oil and gas industry, because today women are holding some top positions in the oil and gas. So we felt that one day will not be sufficient for us to critically examine these issues. So that was why we said, okay, within 3 days, let's have a discussion, let's have a conversation on this. And also, a dinner was also hosted where the young minds were also rewarded, because we had a national essay competition that we rolled out about 2 months ago. And the winner It was across senior secondary and junior secondary school. So we've had the winners as well. First, second, third in junior secondary school, first, second, third in the senior secondary school. Another consolation prizes that was also given out during the dinner that climaxed the week event. So for us, I think we should use the opportunity to thank everyone that played a very vital role to the success of the program.
Okay, very quickly, the theme of this maiden edition of the summit has to do with clean energy, having a justified energy solution towards the challenge that might crop up. From your own experience and as a player in the industry, do you think Nigeria is ready?
Yeah, you know, just as you said, so the theme of this year's PENGASSAN Energy and Labour Summit broadly was anchored on energy transition. So we're looking at what is the impact, or what will the impact of energy transition be on the workforce. Because as we've said, that the conversations that have been out there is, okay, we are transiting to renewables. We are transiting to a cleaner energy. But in all these conversations, we have not had, both at the UN level, at the subnational levels, at the national levels, all the conversations, even at the regional level, none of this conversation has given priority to the workforce. None of this conversation has placed premium on what is going to happen to the most valuable asset, that is the workforce. That has been the missing link. Nigeria just rolled out a plan, a very broad-based plan on energy transition. But if you look at it, there is no detail of how that plan will be implemented. So it's just a high-level document that doesn't contain lots of details. And if you look at countries all over the world, even the plans that they release, they will tell you, okay, how can they metamorphose in investment? How can those that are financing fossil fuel today, how can they move from fossil fuel financing to financing renewables? How can they impose a higher tax on those companies that are still financing fossil fuel? World Bank came out recently and they told us that they will stop financing fossil fuel. If you look at oil and gas companies in the world, they are all transiting to greener energy. They are removing oil and gas from their names, removing petroleum from their names, and now bringing in energies.
So how prepared are Nigerian workers with this development?
Yes, the beauty is that today, the most trained sets of Nigerian workers are the oil and gas workers. Yeah, the reason that they are the most trained is because most of the companies that started operating the oil and gas industry, they are multinational institutions. So they are not just institutions that are Nigerian based. The skill set that are required for you to drill oil in Nigeria is the same skill set that are required for you to drill oil in Texas or for you to drill oil in any part of the world. So because these are international companies, their training packages are similar. What you need to operate in the deep offshores abroad, in Russia, for example, is the same skill set you will need to operate in the deep offshores of ERA, of Akpo, of Egina. So what that means is that an average oil and gas worker in Nigeria has been sufficiently trained in the oil and gas. So transiting from oil and gas to the renewables, it will become much more easier because the technology you need to fire biomass, the technology that you need to produce hydrogen, the technology that you need to produce BV batteries, you can't compare that to the sophistication of the oil and gas production. Today, we know that we have people that have high level of aptitude. We have people that have sophistication in knowledge. We have people that are intelligent in the oil and gas industry, both in the technical area and in the support functions. So this conference is to now announce to the world that the oil and gas industry workers, they are, as of today, they have the basics, but they will now be prepared for what is going to come tomorrow. So we are not scared, we are not afraid. We know that with little touch-up here and there, we'll be ready for the future.
Okay, our conversation cannot end without us still getting to that conversation of oil theft, which the keynote speaker actually addressed, and there was also that roundtable conversation with industry players. What would you say is your take home? Would you say that the relevant stakeholders have practical solutions? Because I saw your members were also very anxious to interact with the industry players.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sharon. You know, the last time we had a conversation on this about the oil theft, we were quite hopeful. In fact, we were quite hopeful that our advocacy will yield some positive results. And today, I think that beyond the rally we did, we went to engage the industry players. From the NUPROC to NNPC, all the stakeholders, including the operators, we have been engaging them. In fact, we have a meeting again on Monday with some of these operators as well, as a further push from our path. So we did not just organize the rally and we went to bed. No, we have been following through with the promises we made to Nigerians because we understand the problem, the fundamental problem that this is poison to the economy. And also, it is making a lot of investors to shy away from investing in Nigeria. As of today, there are appreciable progress. But that progress is not yet seen in the total production, just as announced again by NUPROC, that the production of September even nosedive compared to what we produced in August that we were all shouting. But the good news today is that a lot of a pipeline, or about 2 or 3 of them, will come into stream. These are major pipelines, the Transfocados pipeline, as well as the TMP, the famous Trans-Niger pipeline. If you hear during the summit where the GMD or the GCEO, the Group Chief Executive of NNPC Limited, announced that in the next few days or a week that this pipeline will come into service. You know, beyond what he said as well, we also engage our members because we have a lot of our members working to get this pipeline fixed. So we have been engaging them. And they gave us assurances as well that this pipeline will come into stream. Bringing these 2 pipelines into stream could add over 400,000 barrels per day to our production. So it's a good news. But it's not just sufficient. Bringing the pipeline to bear. What will not happen afterwards? Because if we put them into production and you now flow crude into it again, how are we sure that what happened in February that made us to shut down this pipeline will not happen again? But we are also a bit happy with a lot of discoveries that are being made in the Niger Delta by the Tantita company and the other private securities that were employed. But these private securities, the conventional securities, they must have an integrated system where they will bring in the host community. Because there are some studies, there are some practical things that are done today by some of the IOCs that integrated the host community that they have never stolen their crude for the past 1 year. So those were some of the advocacies that we have been making, the meetings we have been holding behind the scene, was that this particular IOC go and study their model. With these things that they are doing, they have had relative stability in the last 1 year. So let us, push others to study what they have been doing and see how they could apply them in their own area of operations. So those have been some of the advocacies we have been making. But conclusively on this as well, we are hopeful that some progress are being made. We are also happy with the command and control center that is being launched by NNPC.
Yeah, control center and the whistleblowing website, is there a relationship with it? Because I'm aware that there's an incident report site whereby if you see something, you can say something. Is there any collaboration with that?
Yes.
Or is it different?
Yeah, so we have a control center today in NNPC that was developed 100% by PENGASSAN. Okay, let me not take all the glory. Let me say 95%. 95% by PENGASSAN members. But thank you so much. So it's a local solution and a local application. It's 100% localized. But if you go to that control center, you know that Nigerians, if we put our hearts to something, we can actually achieve it. So within that control center, you could see, so they have drones manning some of the pipelines in the Niger Delta. They have various cameras and installations that will now send feedback to the control center. So you'll be in the control center, you could be seeing your pipelines, you'll be in the control centers, you'll be seeing how they steal some of this crude oil in the Niger Delta.
And it's a good one. It's good that it's coming in a short period of time and it's not taking so long for you to achieve that.
With this technology, they can now detect where the crude oil thefts are now happening to a very high degree. Is it 100% today? The answer is no. But is it a departure from the past? The answer is yes. In fact, from those that have deployed this technology, they said up to 70% that they have 70% coverage of what is happening today. But we told them 70% is not good enough. We need to take it to minimum 99.5%. And that is the task that we have requested that they should come up with. And they have promised us that between now and the first quarter of next year, they believe that we will get to that. So when you detect, you also have to respond. So in that response, the response time has also increased. Before now, when you detect, before you respond, mobilize and all that, it takes nothing less than a week or two. But today, the response is now within hours. So when you detect, you can actually deploy the private security there almost within about 2-3 hours. They will get to the scene of crime and they will be able to apprehend the people and fix the problem. So that is one of the advantages. But again, coming to the reporting portal. So in that control room as well, you have a reporting portal. So where Nigerians, where the oil and gas workers, where anybody, the host community, anybody, once you suspect anything, you could go to the portal and report. And again, the portal is www.stopcrudetheft.com. So that is a portal that you could do the reporting. When you report, there is an automatic classification. And once it's classified, then it will now send that particular email to those that should act. And there's also a monitoring time for those people to act as well. So I think these are some of the innovations that they have done, but we are not resting. We are monitoring, we are pushing, we are pressuring for the system to improve from where it is today.
Thank you very much for your time. It was an interesting conversation I had with you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I appreciate it as always.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.